This one, Captain Lionheart, straight from Findhorn, Scotland. The video that you're about to see is a conversation that I had with Kosha Joubert. I'm very glad that I was invited to her roundhouse, really beautiful place. And basically we talk about various topics in relation to ecovillages and her recent work on trauma. It's a very interesting conversation. I was so astonished that I didn't really want to ask many questions. And I was just absorbing it, and I hope that you also gain something from it. So enjoy the video and speak to you soon. Ahoy!
I'm originally from South Africa, where I grew up under Apartheid and had a very deep experience of the systems that I grew up in, hiding an underbelly of things that they were doing, the systems. So it was like a waking up into a world that I think a lot of young people are currently waking up into, to understand that they are part of a system that is in many ways destroying the very planet that we live on and the world that we love and the life that we love, and that is minimizing the future potential of generations yet to come. So it's very complex to wake up to that. And for me, the answer that I found was to become deeply involved in the Global Ecovillage Network, which I led for 15 years. Very inspired to grow the global aspect of it, you know, strengthen the networks in Africa and Latin America, and to really showcase to the world these alternative cultures, places of alternative cultures, regenerative cultures that are being created naturally by human beings that feel called to protect life around them. I have always found this incredibly inspiring and continue to believe that it's one place where we can, one way in which we can change the systems that we're a part of is by really going to the concrete level of changing our everyday lives in deep and meaningful ways in community, and that this has a bigger impact. One of my friends, Jonathan Dawson, he once offered the beautiful image for this, that it's like yogurt culture, curdling the culture, a milk culture, and that every eco-village is like a little yogurt culture that changes the culture it's within. I love that image. It's like quantum change, where small changes in individuals can actually jump over and infect other individuals. And yeah, we have social change movements. So I was very involved in that. As part of that, I was invited to a Gaia education meeting here in Findhorn in 2004. At that time, I was living in an eco-village in Germany, Ecovillage of Siebenlinden. But I fell in love with a man here, which I went back. I had a wild life, but 2009, I was invited to present at a conference here, and I met again with this man. We fell in love again, so I moved here because of love. One answer. The other answer is that I moved here because of the global, the energetic expansion of Findhorn has been quite global over the years. And because I love global change making, I was more at home here to both continue my work in the Global Ecovillage Network, but also my current work with the Pocket Project, which is pockets of healing for pockets of trauma, but also very global outreach. Mm-hmm. And that fits with the Roundhouse, and it also fits with something in the energy of Findhorn, both the community here, but also the energy in this beautiful place in the north of Scotland.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's very interesting to perceive this kind of different characters find also different places that they're more attracted to, of course, and maybe also with the goals like you've just described. I think at that point it would be interesting to hear a bit about, well, all the different eco-village communities that you have visited, and maybe what you see are the strengths and maybe things that, well, if people decide to start one or join one, maybe to give them a bit of a hint of what to look at before starting one, or, and also, yeah, just knowing how to make it work and have a foundation that can be built upon.
I mean, I have visited a huge amount of eco-villages in the world, so I'm not going to, you know, there's no way I could speak about all of them. You know, I could speak about Auroville, Damanhur, Findhorn, which are three of the more well-known older ones.
Yeah, it would be interesting to pick out certain elements where you think, okay, this is actually worth replicating.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the foundation of eco-villages is what I found actually in traditional villages. So I'll start with, because I've been bringing inspiration and also running eco-village design educations in many countries around the world, like China, many countries in Africa, Asia, other countries in Asia, Latin America, across Europe, and actually 48 countries in that time when I was in Gen, which is a large amount. And many of this was because my particular fascination was the way that we can inspire traditional villages that are very much at the hub often of nature protection and cultural protection, and places where a lot of what is alive in eco-villages is still present. So my first inspiration is for people to look at the communities they grew up in. And of course, for many, this is urban environments. Even in urban environments, you can build community, as we know, urban eco-villages. But, you know, many people across the world are still growing up in smaller places. And it's very cool to look at what is missing here to allow this place to thrive and to allow this place to become regenerative. And I think that is a great question to bring to any community we are a part of, whether it's an eco-village or not. What is missing here to allow this community to thrive in all its relations?
And what have you found, like in all the places that you've seen? Because if we find these missing elements, we also find the elements that are worth replicating, right?
Yeah, but this is very different for each context, you know. So in many places, the capacity to integrate the rapidly changing technological world into the traditional formats, and to find responses also to the economic reorganization of life, that makes it hard to build a thriving place. So at the depth, I would say that thriving is built from a personal, deep alignment to something that ignites your passion completely, and bringing your full love and attention to that, and seeking out like-minded people. You know, there's a Hopi prophecy which came out in 2000 that many of us know, which speaks about the fact that this time is a fast river and that many of us will try and hold onto the banks of the river, and that it'll be very painful and a lot of tension, and that we need to let go and come to the center of the river. So I believe that, and then to see who else is there, and to ban the word effort from our language. And I think there's a lot in this because many of us, that the holding on to the borders of the river, I believe, is also connected to holding on to the formulas that we are given. This is good to do, that is good to do, you should be doing this. But actually, is that really what is moving you from the inside? And what is the love that has brought you to this world? What are you here for? What is the one wild and unpredictable life that you are called to live? And to feel the inner motivation that you have deeply, and then to find others that you can share that with, I believe sits at the core of any community seed, Ecovillage seed, but also any company seed. Or, I believe that with social entrepreneurs, in the meantime, I really do believe that communities can take many, many different forms, and many social enterprises that create regenerative economic systems, ecological systems, social systems, even cultural systems, could be seen as mini ecovillage impulses of regenerative, resilient culture. But so for me, that passion lies at the root of it. What is the passion? I believe that this passion, if it comes from a deeper seed, from a deeper place in us, and not from the surface place that is fed by the current mainstream culture, but is infused by, I would say, soul being, deepest inner wisdom, but also infused by our interbeing with everything. So inner places where we come to a place of stillness with the sacred in all life. I believe all of those things need to infuse our passion. So I'm not speaking about a superficial next career goal here. I'm speaking about a deep inner passion. I believe that this, if we then find a small group, and there my learning over the years has been that a group of 3 to 7 is the maximum to start something.
Okay.
Yeah, because one mistake I've seen made again and again and again is that people come with, I have a fantastic idea. I want to start a social enterprise, an ecovillage, a spiritual community. Would you like to join? Who is interested? And it's not so difficult to attract enthusiasm. You could easily get 50 people together. But 50 people together are very hard to clarify intention with. And the clarity of intention of the seed that you want to plant, I believe, is very important. So for instance, here in Findhorn, we have the 3 principles that are part of the seed that was planted by Dorothy McLean and Aileen and Peter Caddy.
Deep inner listening, work is love in action, and co-creation with the intelligence of nature.
Exactly. And these, I do believe that these 3 principles brought together, created an intention, that a clear intention creates a line of creation. If the intention is very clear and it's held in a strong vessel, and 3 people can already be a strong vessel, it has an impulse. And when the intention is clear enough, the impulse is more clear. I think an issue that we often face is that the impulse that we send out isn't clear. You know, it is clarified in conversation with others. I'm not saying I need to be clear in my impulse, you know, but it's often it needs for. I'm also not saying that the impulse or the seed or the passion even is mine. It comes through me. You know, there might be many of us following a very similar passion at this time. You know, it has different nuances, different... But I believe that the way that the seed is planted has a big effect. And we can see that in the big eco-villages. You know, there's usually been very strong founders in them who often, like here in Findhorn, didn't even want to plant a community. They were wanting to plant a place of deep and pure practice and deep and pure interaction with the world around them. But if we have that, it has, in a way, I would say it has a high ethical alliance. And I believe that it attracts energy. You know, there's something in us also today, maybe even more than before, where the longing to find, the longing for inspiration, for something that feels real, for something that feels authentic, is bigger than ever. And yes, it's captured by social media, and it's captured by, a lot of capitalist impulses, you know, that are vying for our attention. But I still believe that we are absolutely able and capable to distinguish in our heart of hearts what we are following, whether it's surface attraction or addiction, or whether it's actually something that is really calling us. Yeah, and, you know, I also feel that in my life, I started being deeply, deeply involved in the community movement and the Ecovillage movement in 1990, or a little bit before in the squatting communities in Amsterdam, you know, then you could say 1887, 1888, something like that. Probably 1888, urban communities. But since then, I think what has changed for me is the radius of what I'm interested in, the granularity, so where I think that very small impulses can make a big difference. And
in what sense? Can you give like an example?
Yeah, so I think that my sense is that, for instance, the community of Findhorn, which became very big, it's a bit like any organization, any animal that has a natural lifespan, where the body grows big and strong, you know, more and more infrastructure is being built, more and more structures are being built. There is more admin, more bureaucracy, which is fantastic, but it attracts a different kind of people over time, you know, and I'm sure you will also have researched this, that pioneer-style people, people who come later who are more maintaining structures, people who come later who might be tearing down structures. You know, there's a lot of different phases to these projects which we need to take into account. The question, is there a natural lifespan for communities? If not, then what are the cycles of renewal that are needed? And what does renewal look like? And what is renewal about? So for me, if I speak about the granularity, I think that in a way, Ecovillage's deepest impulse is to bring healing, regeneration, to bring a counterculture of a destructive culture that we're currently seeing. And the healing capacity is expressed on so many different levels, right? It's the way we treat the ecological landscape around us, that we meet plants. It's the way that we meet our economic systems, what we buy, how we purchase it, where we purchase it, how we change the systems that comes out of. That we really take into account the whole life cycle of everything that we have in our lives, our clothes, our food, our computers, our iPhones, How much of the world do they bring into our lives, and how much are we touching around the whole globe just by the iPhone that we're holding, right? We know a lot more about this these days. The social systems, how do I interact with the other? And how does this touch every relationship in my life? So a lot of people have moved into ecovillages who don't have the easiest time with their families, for instance. So how is the healing being carried back into family systems and ancestral systems and the larger societal system? I would say from Findhorn, if we look over I don't even know, is it now 65 years, 67 years
Started
old?
Started at 62, so it's over 60 years.
64 years old. If you think of all the people whose lives have been touched by the Findhorn impulse, who have gone back out into the world after coming here, and who have brought some of this listening to the inner stillness, some of the co-creation with nature, which in effect means really being able to fine-tune to a level of resonance with nature, where nature can actually inform us, and we take back our place in nature, as a harmonious part of nature, as a part in nature, I'm speaking about us as human beings, as a part that enhances the life force that runs through nature, that doesn't break it down. So, and that work being love in action, that we are here to serve the whole in the best way we can, and to the best of talents that we are here with. And if every one of us would completely fulfill what we came here to do, I believe there would not be too much for anyone to do. I feel that we always bring the tools we need at any moment to find the solutions that we need. So, that is what I mean with granularity. We can look at it via all those people that came to Findhorn. Each one of them took a little bit of the yogurt culture and brought it to their organization, to their family, to their life, to their children. That is an enormous effect, which is we cannot measure it. We cannot measure it, but it's a very beautiful inspiration. Like all the people that I meet who have been in touch with Findhorn, and any change in any of those areas that we make has a little ripple effect. If we say, okay, we're not going to buy these apples anymore, we're going to buy these apples. That has a mini ripple effect, So I'm speaking about these mini ripple effects that seem small, but they are all pervasive. You know, that's what the quantum social change, where we don't know what will make the shift.
Like buying Fairphone instead of iPhone.
Yes. And, you know, at the moment you know, we're at a time in the world where it feels very hopeless for many people, but we could also see, I mean, now I'm coming more to the work that I'm currently doing.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
So, you know, for me, what I saw in communities is that, and I saw it in individual communities, I saw it in the Global Ecovillage Network, and I saw it in the global institutions that I was a part of, that the incredibly good intentions that we have, these beautiful intentions that are seeded, as they travel and create that line of creation, that line of creation runs into what I would call shadow material. We could also call it the sand in the system. We could also call it trauma. And I started realizing this early on because I was very baffled by the beauty of the impulses, and then we have conflicts arising around it, which are a natural and beautiful part of negotiating shape and form. You know, conflict should be an incredibly beautiful co-creative process, and because it's the tensions that come up when the solution isn't clear to everyone, but needs to be negotiated. And if we can really take into account the voices and feel the richness of the voices, a richer solution can emerge. I did a lot of research on the power of collective wisdom and wrote a book on it in German in 2010.
How is it called?
Die Kraft der kollektiven Weisheit, the power of collective wisdom. But so, you know, I've put a lot of energy into researching it, and my question at that time was, why are we collectively so stupid? You know, seemingly. It seems so stupid to start another war when we know it'll just destroy more, you know, of life. We know about species extinction. Why do we continue? We know how to solve things, but we're not solving things together. We're not able to implement solutions together. And, you know, many people come to the conclusion the human being is an egoistical being. Humanity is like a disease to the planet. You know, we're awful. You know, and to me it became, but at the same time, the people I actually meet are really, really good. They're beautiful. The babies I meet are beautiful. They're full of love. So something doesn't quite fit, right? And for me, the understanding that we haven't only been hurt as individuals in our nervous systems growing up, but we've hurt ourselves as humanity. And we've been hurting each other over centuries. And these hurts, we've never really taken time to take stock and to say, okay, let's stop all the hurting. Let's just stop all the hurting for 10 years and completely focus on integration. You know, we've never been able to do that because we're in as a
collective.
A hurt is a hurt creates a deep wish to solve the hurt. And, you know, it seems like in order to solve the hurt, we kind of recreate it a bit so that we can feel more deeply, okay, how could I respond differently in this situation? How could I bring a solution to this situation? So as we look back to humanity's past, we could say that we've had an incredibly long journey already of learning and really amassing wisdom. But we've also had an incredibly long journey of amassing wounds, open wounds, in all the wars, in all the colonialist ventures, slavery. You know, so many huge wounds that we've gender-based violence. You know, there's like racism, sexism, you know, the wounds of a powerful nature living within our collective spheres that are not conscious because they're too painful to process. Yeah, so and I saw this within communities, that even though we often have incredibly good psychological tools to address conflict, individual trauma, stuff comes up in communities that we're not able to address. Themes around exclusion, inclusion, but also woven into the cultural field that the communities are a part of. And I've become more and more interested in the ceiling of creation that ecovillages hit, where the amount of shadow material that has come up, and I also want to say that shadow material comes up where it feels safe enough to come up. Yeah, so that as we allow also more shadow material to come up, we haven't had the tools to work with it. It's very complex to work with individual trauma. We've been developing the tools for that over years. But to work with the more collective aspects of trauma that come up in ecovillages is very hard. And we haven't yet developed the tools for that. And this is what I'm currently deeply involved in. Like, how do we develop tools for collective trauma integration? And I could say a lot more about why it's so difficult. I think a lot more is being done around that. But the first thing is that the energy is a lot more powerful that comes up when we're in groups and shadow material comes up.
I found that very, very interesting when you say that trauma or shadow parts come up when they feel safe enough.
Yes.
Because that's really like, wow.
Yeah, and that means, you know, we've often beaten ourselves up in the ecovillage movement for the amount of conflict we experience. But, you know, you could beat yourself up in nearly every intimate relationship as soon as you really create safe spaces of love, protection. Shadow materials feel safe enough to come up. Wow. And, you know, so there's nothing wrong when that comes up in a relationship. Actually, that's when the relationship really starts. Unfortunately, we want to be comfortable. So we leave relationships when the real work starts. And we do that again and again and again. In our communities, in our relationships, in our societies. And then, you know, a lot grows out of that. And I feel like learning to stay and learning to look at, I'm not saying anybody has to stay if they're overwhelmed. No, we cannot stay when we don't have the tools. We are overwhelmed. We need to leave. The issue is that we no longer have a place to leave to. You know, the colonialists left Europe, people from Scotland left Scotland, they went to other places. People have been leaving for a very, very long time. We've reached the absolute planetary capacity for leaving.
You mean generally in all the cultures?
I mean, in all the cultures, in all the relationships, leaving because it's too hard to stay, you know. And now we're building rockets to go to Mars or something, you know, the next. But I believe the invitation to us in these days is to turn around, to face the leftover of the past, to learn to stay. And the first place to learn to stay is in myself. The first place where we run away is in ourselves. So the first thing is to, how do I stay myself? How do I stay with you in a relationship? How do I stay in a community when it's going through a really hard time? And this doesn't mean that there's not a right time also to maybe go somewhere else if it's your life journey. I'm not speaking about that. But even in that, we do know that you take yourself and you take all the unsolved issues with you, and they will come up again in the next place you are. So, yeah, this I find fascinating. So where I am now, I would say, one of the most important tools to learn, and, we're actually running a big training for this in the Pocket Project this year, which we call the Resilience Program, is to learn to self-regulate our nervous systems enough and to co-regulate each other enough so that when the shadow material comes up, it's triggering, it throws us out of the green zone where we can socially interact. Most of us know some about that by now, the nervous system by now, but how to come back to a place where I'm present in myself, where I can stay present with you, I can stay present with what comes up, and I can work with the energy that is coming up rather than being overwhelmed by it, and where we learn how to do that in groups. So we're training up resilience circle facilitators, which is to do that work precisely, and to do that in crisis areas, because I believe that everywhere is a crisis area now. And I believe that most ecovillages are crisis areas as well, because there's a lot coming up and often not a lot of capacity to hold it and process it and digest it. And the beautiful thing is that we can digest it in little bits. So none of us can digest the collective trauma of, say, colonialism. But we can start digesting a little bite size of maybe connecting to one ancestor of ours that was involved, whether as victim or as perpetrator, and just sitting with them for a while. Not alone, but maybe with others. So we can do a small bite size. We can start just by looking at a photograph, just reading a bit more, so yeah. And to me, this is the key for us all in our lives, and also the key to create community wherever we are. Because we create community where we stay and where we're willing to be in discomfort sometimes to express our love.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Good.